2. Hello, welcome to Let's Waffle Part 2, looking at Round 8, the Mother's Day round. All games on Saturday, fortunately, so we can spend a little bit of time with our mothers on the Sabbath. John, AFL teams coming into the WAFL, the reserves concept. What's the latest on that? All the clubs have been spoken to, but they're still yet to get the submissions, we understand.
Yes, the Eagles and the Dockers, their joint submissions going to the Commission, it's been put together to go to the Commission by the end of this month, and my understanding is that June the 2nd there is a proposed meeting with all the WAFL clubs. That includes club boards, so it's an informal meeting, it's not a meeting for votes, but the two AFL clubs will present to the WAFL clubs. They haven't done that so far. Their tour of the nation has been really to gather feedback rather than to put their case. They'll be putting their case on June the 2nd if they're ready to do it, and we'll then start to see the shape of their proposal, and I'm sure that proposal from that point onwards will be out and about, and there'll be a significant public debate about the merits.
It's going to get nasty, isn't it? This is not.
I think it's got nasty already.
First hurdle, yeah. It's going to get very nasty when the AFL clubs don't get their way.
Though funnily, I think my sense of it is that they are starting to accept perhaps some level of reality, that they've had so much opposition from the WAFL clubs that they recognise it's going to be very hard for them to get up with standalone teams and having an 11-team competition. I mean, the pain that the WAFL went through to bring Peel in, and the fact that they had a short-term licence and the debate over whether that licence was extended, which went on for a while, and now they're talking about bringing 2 teams in. I mean, it'll kill the we have no doubt about that. 11 teams will just dissipate the talent so rapidly that the WAFL will become a basket case very quickly.
The reserves competition basically is the fun if the AFL reserves come in.
I mean, the reality is, of course, that the clubs will oppose it. I mean, the Commission is saying repeatedly, I think, that the clubs have the right to veto it and that they won't overrule it. I think the clubs have been told that even as early as this week, that they have been confirmed that they have the right to say no, and if they say no, it will not happen. But what happens then? If it does get knocked off, and you think it probably will get knocked off, I'm sure that the 2 clubs will then be starting to go to 2. They've identified already their preferred WAFL clubs and go to them and will look at a takeover.
It's interesting that those 2 clubs, the understanding is that Peel and Perth are the ones that have been identified, are the 2 most vulnerable clubs in the competition. Do you think it's a clear tactic by the AFL clubs to divide and conquer, basically?
Well, I mean, in a way though, Fremantle, you'd think they'd prefer maybe East Fremantle, which is just around the corner, and
do you think they really care who it is? I mean, if they're going to take
really, no.
I mean, they talk about an amalgamation, or it would be a joining of the club. I mean, they'll be taking it over.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, there was a proposal to Peel, I think, from Fremantle last year, which was a straight takeover, and they knocked that back. It didn't really get off the ground. I think this one will have far more momentum, because the AFL clubs will say, well, you've knocked back our idea. We need it to remain competitive in this highly competitive market. Strangely though, Fremantle are flying, West Coast are going pretty well. They haven't got reserves teams. Imagine that. And the other thing too, I saw the figures released recently about the money expended in the football departments in the various AFL clubs. $18.5 million spent by West Coast, the second highest by any club. Where they come last. $4.5 million a win. Unbelievable that the amount of money that can be spent for no return. I mean, the pressure, there's sort of been debate about an AFL reserves team. I think that is going away, that there's very strong opposition to that within VFL ranks, and there's also some pressure on Collingwood and Geelong about their standalone reserves teams. So in fact, in a way, it could be that the West Coast and Fremantle are pushing for reserves teams at a time that the VFL might actually be doing away with them.
Well, the VFL want to adopt the West Australians model, the district model, and to bring in the cylinder that kids can follow all the way from Auskick to senior ranks. And
geez, I'd love to have the Waffles crowds too. The VFL, that's killed it. You watch some of the highlights on ABC occasionally, and there might be 4 people there.
Well, we wouldn't mind sample crowds either. In fact, the crowds have been down. Well, up until about round 6, I think the crowds are down nearly 25% this year.
Yeah, they've made a bit back last week. 3,000 at Claremont Oval. Not often that Claremont gets the biggest crowd in the Waffle during the week, but 2 undefeated teams.
Well, what does the AFL TV rights do? There's supposedly a twilight fixture coming in. To be honest, I don't think that fixture is going to affect the WAFL one bit, because football's been played at the AFL level when WAFL games have been on in the night.
There's a core. There's no doubt there's a core of WAFL supporters who will go to the WAFL whether or not AFL's on or not, and whether that core is 1,000 a game or 2,000 a game.
Well, if the AFL schedule Gold Coast versus Port Adelaide, I know which game I'll be watching, even if it's Peel versus Perth. Sorry, Peel Perth supporters.
Oh yeah, but I mean that's right. I mean, as I said, that there's a core that goes to the WAFL games. I think that there's been one thing that's happened this year, and maybe this has impacted on WAFL figures, is that the two local teams have done well. I mean, they've been winning, and so perhaps people are more willing to give up a WAFL game to stay home and watch it on the telly at 5 o'clock or whatever. But on the whole, I reckon that maybe that third Saturday afternoon or third Saturday evening match might not have a great impact. And the quality of the footy is such that people are still going to come to WAFL games to watch good sides playing pretty good footy. And the other thing, of course, the better West Coast and the better Freo go, and the longer it is before they build a new stadium, the harder it is to go and watch those two teams play. So if you actually want to watch good quality football live in front of you and have a kick at half time or at three-quarter time and have your kids run around, there's only one competition you can do it at.
That's right. Now, you mentioned good teams playing well. I'll bring up East Perth at this juncture.
Under which ground, Ross?
Well, they're doing well in the Foxtel Cup. 1-5 from their first 6 games. They've almost blown the season.
Well, they've lost 5 on the trot, and it's been a long while since East Perth have been that uncompetitive, I guess. And they, on occasion, I mean, they pushed Claremont hard for a fair bit of that game. They pushed Subi, but when they stopped badly, and they got overrun again by East Fremantle, who've been reasonably down, and they were up, I think, at three-quarter time in that game again, East Perth. So their inability to run out games is really hurting them. And
some big names not firing. I mean, each week you look, it's Brendan Lee's almost their best player for the season. Aaron Sweet's been pretty effective. Wolfie was pretty good early in the season, but I'm not so sure that the big impact players. I mean, Josh Smith, maybe to give him some credit, he's had impact in a number of games.
Look, I think he's played when he's played well. He's had an impact. Pettifer the same. That he's been flashy, and so he's flashed in and out. He's a strong-bodied player. He does a bit, and what he does is pretty good, but he doesn't do it for long enough. And a lot of their players are being, some of their lesser players, I guess, are being found out. They've had the issue with Zach Clark. He's only played 2 games. Freo wanted to move him on.
Have they got enough goals from Polak?
Look, in a way, Polak's performance has been a reflection on the lack of impact from the midfield. The 2 or 3 games that I've seen from East Perth, he's been quite competitive. Certainly against Subi, he only kicked, I think, 3 goals, but he kicked 2 in the first 10 minutes and really worked hard. And then the ball just was kept away from him from the rest of the game. So those 3 pickups that they've had, Smith, Pettifer and Polak, in small bursts have been good, but you need more from senior players. But equally, if they're playing deep in attack, then it's hard for them to have an impact without the ball being down there. They've gone for the year too. I mean, they obviously can't make the finals now.
They can concentrate on winning the Foxtel Cup, and they might have a bit of luck with that, John. The next game could be moved from TIO Stadium up in Darwin. The monsoonal weather might take its toll, and there's an AFL game later that day, so they want to save the game, of course, for the national competition match, and might be a chance of coming back to Perth, that final match. That's
against Northern Territory Thunder, and haven't they got a secret weapon in Jason Rowe, the former East Perth player? So I'm sure East Perth are thinking if Jason Rowe's out there playing for the Thunder, that they are a half a chance of getting up and going through to the semi-finals.
Now, just before we go, state game developments is around the corner, and I think you've got some mail on what might be happening in the next week or so.
After this is round 8, and after this, clubs are asked to nominate players to the selection panel, which is chaired by Gerard McNeil, who used to coach the Royals many moons ago, maybe early 80s. Yeah, right. So quite a while ago for Gerard McNeil, and then he worked at Freo for a little while as well. He's the chairman of selectors. Brian Dawson, the reigning premiership coach, is coaching. Clubs will be asked to nominate. It's a funny system. Clubs will be asked to name who they think should be in the state squad. The selectors look at them. They could reject every single one of them if they felt like it, and go out and pick their best side. But at least it gives the club some chance to nominate players. And I guess you can put an argument. And there's club officials like Adam Lang and Michael Braun and Bill Monaghan, who were
Interesting
involved in the
that they
coaching
gave
panel.
some non-league coaches opportunity. So there's been a bit of a pathway there for someone like Michael.
I think there's a debate going on too, and this will receive even more debate, I think, when they have their formal meetings about what they want to do. Do they pick their best side, in which case you might get some pretty senior players getting played, or do they want to expose players at a younger level, like they're doing with the coaches, with Brown and Adam Lang, who's an assistant at Clement, and Braun, who's the Colts coach at East Perth, giving them greater exposure? Do you then put someone up like Shane Zanetti, for example, who's a big forward at East Perth, West Perth, playing his first season, or his first regular season? He's shown some really good signs. He's about 19, I think, or maybe 20. He's a bit of a smoky to get drafted at the end of the year. You probably wouldn't pick him if you're picking Chad Jones as a full forward, but if you're thinking, well, maybe Zanetti's a bit of a chance, do we give him that little bit more exposure? That's a debate that's going on at the moment, and I think that's a fair debate to have, and I'm not sure what the answer will be for that.
Well, that's part 2 of Let's Waffle for round 8. Make sure you're kind to your mothers on Sunday, but we'll see you at a WAFL match on Saturday, and remember to stay with thewest.com.au for all your big waffle news.